Hey everybody, this is Tony.
And this is Paul, and we're coming at you from the Friends for Life podcast, where we discuss the ongoing lives and issues of people with developmental disabilities to spark positive change in the field.
And we have a lot of fun doing it.
Making sure that individuals are reaching the goals they have set for themselves. That's one of the many goals of Assured Health Services. If you're looking for a residential care provider or searching for ADS services, Assured Health is your go-to place. Assured Health, helping others succeed. Learn more at assuredhealthohio.com or call 419-442-8066.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Friends for Life podcast. Thanks for tuning back in. Today we are talking about something that is going to possibly short-term affect the podcast. We are moving to a new studio and a new office. So Tony, what was the impetus, big word there, for this move? It's the only one that came in my brain.
You know, well, if we were going to use big words and stuff, in reciprocity, like, it sounds fun. But true facts, man. We are at a stage in development for Friends for Life that we need more space. That's it, people. But the move in and of itself is going to be so much greater because we're going to have a new studio, for one. Like, that's going to be the fun part. Secondly, we're going to be introducing new programs to the individuals that we serve. And that is what's really got my energy boosters up and ready.
What are some of the new programs are you doing?
Well, this is going to sound like such a contradiction to what I normally say, but we are going to do some ADS. We're also going to do some voc services. Any new listeners who doesn't understand the anagrams of this field, ADS is adult day support. And I've always kind of been leery of doing it personally because I feel like you need to do what you do best. And I know I am stronger in the residential field. Like, I know how to clean very well. I know how to cook very well. I know how to be organized and create systems that a household can run smoothly for everyone but my own. Like, that's the hardest one. But with that, I never wanted to branch out and start doing things just for the money. Like, that has always been a very disgusting trait in my mind. Just because you can do it and you're doing it for extra money, it doesn't make sense. Like, let's build upon what we're great at. But as I'm looking more and more at the need, I have decided, like, you know what? I do have skills and specialties in all of these areas. I worked in transportation for multiple places. I've supervised in transportation for multiple places. So it will be okay for me to do transportation the same way I do the residential side of things. Same thing when it comes to vocational skills. Same thing when it comes to just volunteer work and leadership. Like, all of these things I have a background in that I studied and put my all in. So
what is your ideal situation for, like, an ADS? Like, what are you looking to make it like?
My ADS mindset is more going to be a fulfillment of residential needs. All right. So there's not enough hours in a day to do anything we really want. I mean, we can both agree with that. Mm-hmm. So when you are working with an individual who may need a little extra guidance on how to either do their laundry, do some cooking, do some cleaning, this, that, and the other, when you are in the profession, you are trying to not give this individual too much anxiety. You're not trying to have this person feel as if what they're doing is not acceptable, or it's like there's so many fine tunings of it. But my thought is, if we work with individuals and we have sectors in all three areas, from the residential to ADS and transportation, you are going to have that constant reinforcement of what we as a team came together to fixate on. So if an individual, let's say for just something very simple, has a hard time tying their shoes, there are some people who will not remind that person to tie their shoes. But if we are embodied in all three areas, each one of our staff would have been in those meetings to know that, hey, we remind such and such to tie their shoes. Okay. If we see their shoes untied, hey, can you tie your shoes? Would you like to tie your shoes? Do you need help tying your shoes? Those kind of situations.
Cool. And then I think it's going to be interesting to kind of redo the podcast studio, because if you go back to our first couple episodes, well, actually our first episode was in this room.
Yes.
Because this used to be a conference room. Mm-hmm. And then we moved to a studio upstairs, and that was the Orange Studio, which we were in for probably 7 months. Yeah. We were up there, and that was nice. But then we quickly realized that there was no accessibility when we had to carry someone in a wheelchair up there.
Shout out to Steve, man. Steve, I love you, bro. We carried that man up there, and it was not just him, John too. Mm-hmm. Shout outs to John. I hope you're doing well. Haven't seen you in a long time, but and so we moved. Right around COVID, this was supposed to be your ADS, actually, I believe, and then we kind of. You quickly decided that probably wasn't a great idea during that period. So we moved the podcast studio back down here, and we built it out, and it's full of a bunch of sound stuff and posters and things of that nature. Yes. And now we are tearing it down after, 2.5, 3 years of being in here? I think it's been close to 2.5, 3. Yeah, it's closer to the 3 mark.
And then, so we are going to kind of come up with a new image for it and redesign everything. Hopefully for a little bit better viewing experience, maybe a little bit different
That's
style.
Exactly what we want. We want people to be able to engage, and we have to stay on the times just as like everyone else. So we really care. Anybody who's listening to us, anyone who's watching us, we really care about what you say, your opinions about the information that we give, the new segments that we bring up, just the overall topics. Mm-hmm. I mean, if any of you have any topics, please reach out. We have gotten plenty of other topics, and there are things that we're trying to do with other groups to make, like Paul said, the experience of the podcast way more enjoyable and educational at the same time. Mm-hmm. Like I don't like the fact of a lot of times these days, in order for something to quote unquote go viral, it needs to be violent. It needs to be worthless. I mean,
degrading.
Yeah. Or extremely sexual. Like, I'm not a fan. Well, let me take this back. I think some of the TikTok trends are cute. The little dances and all of that stuff. But let's throw some education behind it. Like, if you're going to have so many people look at you, touch your elbow to your nose and do these little mannerisms, like, let's have a sign up and say, hey, let's support somebody who can't help themselves. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm overly sensitive, I guess.
Well, it'll be cool to kind of reimagine the podcast because, it's also good to break out of your comfort zone. Like, we've gotten comfortable being in here and doing the same things and get the same setup. You flip the same switch every time you start recording. It's kind of good to break out every once in a while and try something new. So we don't have it fully kind of like designed yet because we're just getting in there now, but we will have it up and running. Well, we don't have a choice relatively quickly. I think once we
we're going to have to do it.
Yeah. So it's going to look a little different. It's going to sound the same, but it's going to look a little different, which will be really cool. And we hope you guys will like it. We're trying to come up with some more interesting visual stuff for you while we're over there.
Yeah. All that good stuff. And in the meantime, I do want to say, with the new year, I think a lot of people have the mindset of like New Year's resolutions and stuff like that. And we're going close to the quarter mark of this year. Anybody who can hear my voice right now, it's okay if you didn't accomplish everything that you wanted to right away. Life happens. And I am a firm believer of consistency. So when negative things do happen, it can be hurtful. It can feel as if it's the end of the world. But I think each and every single one of us need to just take a deep breath and remember that we are worth it. We are the people who help people. We are the people that other people need. So we have to put ourselves in the right mindset to constantly go out there day to day. And this is to anybody who's going through anything right now themselves. You're loved by people. You're loved by others. You're appreciated. Not only through your profession, but through your life. There are people who care for you. And if they don't, reach out to me. We can develop a relationship and I'll care for you. Because no one should go through this world feeling as if no one cares for them. So that kind of took a more...
it's also, I mean, there's a lot of instant gratification out there too with people too. And it's like, it's very difficult to have a goal in mind and not give up very quickly too. So I think people should keep that in mind as well. Like, if you have a big goal, it's not going to happen quickly. It's just not. Like, the virality of things, especially that we see nowadays, is like 1 in a million. So like the chances of you doing something that's going to blow up quickly is very low. And if you listen to any sort of leadership books or read any sort of like self-help stuff, they all say this. They're like, overnight success is usually about 15 years in the making. So like it's right. really a matter of just, if you really want to do something and you care about what you're doing and you really believe in what you're doing, you have to show up and do it when no one's watching you. And that's where I think a lot of people get off track too, is because they want that attention and gratification very quickly. Like, these things take a long time. Like, I've been talking about making a documentary since I was in college, which is almost a decade ago. And I finally did it like a year ago. And it took me essentially 9 years to figure it out. But that's what it takes. And did it get 1 million views? Absolutely not. But I mean, I made it. So it's like, it just takes a long time. If you want something to be good, it's hard. Yeah. Learning how to use a camera is difficult. Learning how to edit is hard. Learning how to run a podcast is hard. Like, it's all hard. Yeah. There's nothing. Starting a business is hard. Like, how many years was it before you actually made any money? Oh, dude. When I started the company? When you started Friends for Life, how many years before you were like, oh, crap, there's actually money here that I made? 5 years. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was my 5th year that I was like, well, honestly, man, I bought my wife a vehicle before, a nice new vehicle and everything, before I even bought myself one. And I even kind of kicked myself in the ass for it. Like, dude, you know how hard you're going to have to continue to work to pay this thing off, right? So, yeah, it actually takes me back when you saying that, when I had a manager's meeting way back in the day, maybe the 2nd year in, and I had asked somebody about if they would volunteer their time to learn and educate themselves, be my right-hand person so you can see what I do. And this dude said, my family told me don't never do anything for free. Unfortunately, I wanted to say, but I couldn't. You're always going to be broke. Because if that's the mindset, like, some things have to be done, quote unquote, for free.
The Reliable Drug and Alcohol Testing Clinic is a leading provider and convenient source of pre-employment and occupational type testing. Their clinic provides services to a wide range of private businesses, healthcare facilities, and municipal and county courts. Reliable is an independent, locally owned clinic. As a result, they provide their services at a lower cost than the major hospitals, have faster turnaround times on test results, and eliminate the long waits typically incurred at these larger facilities. To learn more, visit reliabledrugtest.com.
Well, a lot of the people that say that are like, that applies at a certain level, but not the beginning. I mean, I do, like, to some extent. I mean, like with where I'm at with like doing my video stuff aside from Friends for Life, just on the side, I'm there. I'm like, I'm not doing anything else for free because that's my job. That's all of my livelihood comes from doing video.
That makes sense. I get that.
Like, I've gotten how many years experience with you doing this? Like, that knowledge is going to cost you now. I've been doing this for a very long time at this point. Like, going on 5 years. So it's like, yeah, that's all right. I've taken my beatings and learned my lessons. So the free isn't anymore. But when I started out, absolutely, I was just doing anything I could to get time under my belt, and I didn't look at it as like, well, I'm getting screwed. I'm looking at it like I'm learning. I don't know what I'm doing yet. And then I get to a point where I'm like, I really do know what I'm doing, because like, now I get people calling me, asking me like, how do I do this with my audio? How do I do this with the camera? How do I do this? And it's like, okay, I'm confident now that I know enough because I can explain this without feeling like I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
And that's why you have to pay me now. You know what I'm saying? So like, yes, I do think there's some truth in what you're saying. If you want to be at a level of high achievement and high pay, first you have to get there. You have to do the BS and learn and take the time.
And you know, something else that I've noticed about a lot of people, excuse me, as I'm inhaling air and exiting it at the same time, there's this gap of understanding that the time that's put in versus the payback. You know, there is no real time phrase for success. Like, we can put every plan, into play, but are we going to follow that every single day? And if we follow it every single day, what part of the plan are we going to have that evolution that you got this extra money? But plans are always, what did Mike Tyson say? Everybody got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
I don't care how much you sit there and you write things. Oh, we're going to do this. This is one of the reasons our policy and procedures are as thick as this big. It's a ton of it, because every time something happens, now we have to add something new. But in the beginning, we're not anticipating these kind of issues and problems. So when you have anybody who think that they can perfect a business before it actually starts, and they didn't do it prior to, man, it's a joke.
Well, I was listening to a podcast recently. It's just the one I listen to pretty much like every day when I wake up. They're short episodes, and sometimes he'll have like a longer guest. And he interviews a lot of interesting people. And the one guy was saying, he was like, he wanted to start a bookstore. That was like the guy who runs the podcast. He's like, I really just love books. I really like reading. I just really I think I could do a good bookstore because I just read a lot and I know a lot. And his friend was like a huge like angel investor guy, and he had all these businesses that he runs, and he's just like ultra wealthy. And he was like one of his best friends, and he goes like, he went to him for advice because he's like, this is the guy that always tells me that everything I'm doing is not a good idea. He's like, he's my go-to, and he's like my gut check. Like, maybe you probably should think about this a little more. Yeah. He's like, I can rely on him to be like, this is dumb. And the guy said, well, are you financially, are you okay? And the guy's like, yeah, I'm okay. Like, I don't have any problems. Everything's paid for. Like, I'm not worried about it. And he goes, so do it for a year. If you don't like it, then you just sell the bookstore and liquidate it and get back to zero, and you're like, it'll be fine. And he was like, I never thought about it like that. He's like, I've looked at it at this big long-term lifetime commitment that I'll never be able to get out of. He's like, open the bookstore, buy the books, sell them, and if it's worth it to you, then it's a success. If you don't like it, close the bookstore, sell the books back, and just be happy. You might lose 30 grand, but like, at least you know you don't want to run a bookstore. And he was like, that was the best advice I've ever gotten. So like, what's the worst happens if you do something? Okay, I want to be a writer, write every day for a year. And if you hate it, then maybe it's not for you.
That makes so much. Dude, this is so interesting that you even mentioned that. I literally had a situation today where I'm calling somebody who, during their interview, to be a DSP. They're talking about how they want the growth. They want to be a manager. They want this, that, and the other. Very good persona that they're putting on. Go through the training, go through orientation. We go through home working with the individuals. Everything's going sort of smooth. I'm hearing good things like, hey, very reliable person, not only on time, but early. Not only cleans, deep cleans. Not only cooks from scratch. Very good stuff. But today, there was a scenario in which it was documentation needed for a lateness. I guess she was going to be tardy, tardy or not show up. I take that back. She didn't show up for a shift yesterday.
Okay.
And when asked for, because our policies and procedures, if you have a late call off or unscheduled call off, we need documentation for it to be considered not abusive. You know, if you don't have the documentation, it's okay. We're just going to mark it where we mark it, and it's a late call off or a call off. Now, after all of this has been explained, and again, this person has went through orientation. Also with that, they've only been here for 2 weeks. Like, this stuff should still kind of be here, especially when you're telling me you want to be a manager. You want to have this quote unquote control over so much stuff. When asked for the documentation, the reply was, never mind. And this was via text. Never mind. I can't even bring it up because I don't feel like going to my emails and stuff. But never mind. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm not going back to the hospital such and such, because it was a ways away. It was not a simple, easy thing. Now, my first thought goes to, well, if this is a serious situation, as you say, there has not been a hospital that I've known that wouldn't fax those details over for you, especially if a family member is passing. Like, let's make it make sense. And I can't sit and have someone who's just telling me you want to be a manager, you want to be the leader, you want to do all of this, but your actions do not show it. Things happen. And in this field, we need to be able to help the people that we need to help when we can. And communication and proper documentation is the primary thing that we always need. Mm-hmm. So, like, it frustrated the hell out of me. It really did. But at the same time, I had to let my team see and know this is what we're up against. People have lives. People have their own thoughts of what they feel is important versus what they don't. And it sucks. And I want to say this too, to any of my other agency providers out here, any people who are newer starting these companies and doing these things. Tap yourself on the back when you deal with those situations. It is not easy. I know. It is frustrating. You get people that come to you, they lie to you, they fill out applications and say, hey, I'm going to be the best person ever. And a week later, they're calling off and doing nothing at work. It's all right. Because what you are doing is making a difference by finding someone else later. So I really want that to be understood and taken in. And I hope there's a young provider agency out here listening to this and knowing that you're going to go through a lot of struggles. It's not just about the money. The money will come. Being a business owner is good when you know how to run business. But do not think that it stops. You're not going to just, I got 7 staff. I got a house. Let's leave it alone. Got it. Good. I can just go spend money. No. Yeah. There are things that happen.
Well, my uncle ran a business for 30 plus years and he just sold it. And I asked him, like, does this ever get easier? He's like, if you want this to be easy, stop now. He's like, this is not ever easy. It sucked at the beginning and it sucked at the end and it sucked in the middle. It's difficult because you're where the buck stops. No matter what happens, it's your problem. Nobody gives a crap. At the end of the day, it comes to you. And it's like, that makes sense. And there's definitely a trade-off, because he always used to tell me, he goes, because I used to tell him, I was like, man, I want to run my own business so I can be my own boss. He's like, you're not your own boss when you run a business. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, every person that pays you is your boss. He's like, you have hundreds of bosses. And I'm like, that sounds bad. He's like, it's terrible. But I mean, you're responsible for the taxes. You're responsible for the healthcare. You're responsible for everyone that works there. If they screw up, guess whose problem it is? Yours. So that's just kind of like where it's at. People think it's this easy thing, and it's not. When someone's unhappy with your product, they call you, and you have to say yes sir, yes sir, yes sir, when you really want to say I want to punch you through the phone. I mean, that's what it is, though. And I mean, so like, it's not seeing it from both sides. I'm like, I understand how it looks so appealing, but it's like when some paperwork comes through and says you're not qualified or you're not verified, or you're like, what do I do? And they're like, figure it out. We don't care. Like that. Like, we don't care if it works for you or not. You're like, you figure it out. And I'm like, oh yeah, this really sucks.
Hey, look, real talk, man. The only other job I think of owning a company that is harder is middle management. I just had a conversation with people about this, and especially middle management in the DD field. You are stuck in this point where you are, if you're a house manager, site manager, team leader, different places have different roles for this. But it's basically the person who is a step above your lower level workers, but not quite on the administrative area. So they have skills, they have leadership abilities, they have all of these great qualities, but they're pulled and pushed between those two areas. So that is the hardest position, because you have to discipline and work with your lower levels, but you got to kind of keep this camaraderie and quote unquote friendship type of relationship, while also tending to your superiors and completing the tasks that they want. And it's just like, it's a tap dance juggling act. It really is. So I think that is one of the hardest positions to ever really do. But what I see from it, it's literally like that, like a brick wall that you have to chisel through. Like, that teaches you for everything else from the top. Like, once you chisel through that wall of, schedules, paperwork, this, that, and other, like, you get through it, and now you're an administrator with leadership qualities to train another middle management person and give them encouragement, because you know that you can make it to a whole nother level. But shout out to anybody in middle management. If you're a house manager, team leader, site manager, area manager, if you're just a leader in your site, period, shout outs to you.
Yeah. And I think that's like a true sign of knowing that you are good at your job and know your job well, is when you can explain things to people without having to look it up. That's what I was saying a little bit earlier about how I was more confident in like I should be charging a lot for this, because like I have people, I have few people I know that are good friends of mine. They'll text me an audio question. Like, we use Adobe for all the stuff we're doing. That's the editing software and all this. And I've used it for so many years. I had a friend text me yesterday. He said, the audio is only coming out of one side of my speaker. What do I do? And I, in my brain, went through all the menus in Adobe and told him exactly where to click. He's like, oh, that fixed it. I was like,
wow.
Yeah, that's like
you even shot yourself.
Yeah, like that. Okay, I think I know what I'm doing. Like if you can do that with any position, like if someone calls you and say, hey, this just happened, what do I do? And you don't have to, like, I'll call you back and you can be like, this. The only way to do that, though, is the repetition of it, because I've done this thousands and thousands of times. I know where it's at because I've used these tools thousands and thousands of times. And it's like, I don't even need to think about it anymore. It just know what to do in a situation.
Reflex.
Like I was filming something the other day and a piece of equipment died, and I've had this happen so many times that I was like, oh, okay, well, let's do this. And I fixed it. And I'm just like, that's what you should be able to do. If you think you're good at your job, look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that point and be like, can I fix this without having to call everyone?
We're actually, a lot of my team, and I put them on what's called the 4 bullets. I'll talk more in depth about the 4 bullets. But it's basically, it's 4 questions that you ask before you call a supervisor. And if you don't ask those 4 questions, if you call a supervisor and they ask you a question that you didn't answer in those 4 questions, you should have never called that supervisor. You know, and it's very simple. It's very strategic, and it's usually a fixer before any call needs to be made, because each and every question pertains to a solution mindset. So
yeah, well, I always say to myself, if it doesn't involve calling you about your schedule of when you're available, or if we need to buy something, I shouldn't have to call you, because that's you don't like, this is what I do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, why would I call you if my program's not working? You don't know. You hired me so that I knew.
Because you know that.
So that's like, I see that a lot too. My wife is in management in this field, and like the calls that I hear when I'm sitting on the couch at night that people call her about, I was like, this person could have figured that out.
Yeah.
There's no reason you needed to call somebody like, where's the bread? Like, like there's never any reason. You should just look in the cupboards and figure it out, or
And
ask the person you're with.
If it's no bed, make a tortilla.
Yeah,
I
go
don't
to
know.
the store. I don't know what to tell you. Like,
roll some turkey and some cheese. I don't know.
yeah, you just see a lot of that, and it's like people don't realize that like at the upper level of stuff, people aren't really worried about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yes, you screwed up, and like they think they're going to be in this predicament where like their job's on the line. Like, I mean, if you do it enough, yes, but like we expect that at some level people are going to screw things up, because like we all do that. Like, nobody's going to have like this perfect track record forever. Like, it's a job, and especially if you're new and don't know what you're doing, like it'll be okay. You just tell us, so we, because like I don't think people realize that at a job level, they're not concerned about you personally screwing up the job. Like, it sucks that you messed up, but like if you screw up enough, it's costing us time and money. Whereas like we want to prevent that from happening. We're not upset at you as a person generally, unless it's like real dumb. Like real stupid.
It has to be like all the way out.
Yeah, like, but like generally it's like, don't do that again, because that cost me $1,000, and like the money just doesn't come out of thin air. You know what I mean? And like companies are all based on money. At the end of the day, like if there's no money, you don't have a job anyway. Like, so like messing up is expensive. Like, and I have somebody drop a camera and break it. I'm like, that cost $2,000. Don't ever do that again, please. You know what I mean? Or like, that's just a random example, but it's like,
but it's
I'm not mad at you. I've dropped cameras too, but like, we can't be doing this. Figure out a way to hold it.
Well, and that's the difference between discipline and write-ups. Like, when people say, oh man, I'm getting a write-up, I think of write-ups as being something that's more conducive to like factory work. Like, hey, you were late, or you damaged something, this, that, and other. If it happens again, just like you said, it's costing us money. You're going to have to go. But in this kind of work, I prefer disciplining, and discipline does not have to be a bad thing. Discipline is good. Discipline means that you are putting yourself and your company and your individual in the damn spotlight of what needs to be done and what needs to be accomplished. So, like, I had someone come in the other day, and they had to receive a disciplinary action. And the irony of this was a former employee who has come back after a couple of years, and good worker, good person. Now, she had to leave because of personal matters, and I understand that, and I appreciated her for even coming back afterwards. But something didn't go right, and she ended up having to receive a disciplinary action. And I walked in at the very end of it after she signed, and I'm speaking with her, and I could see that she's very irritated and distraught. So we start having a conversation about it, and she explains to me, and one of the quickest things she said, she's like, I can't be doing this. I can't be having this on here. And she started to walk out, and again, she was polite and said hi and all of that to me and all. But I brought her back, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Explain it to me. And basically, she was taking that as if it's one step for her to be fired, one step for her to be terminated or like kicked out of the company. And I'm like, no, you can get 60 of these in 60 different areas. I'm fine with that. But as long as you're not repeating the same thing over and over again, that is the part that I need some understanding and some, from, I'm not going to be on that. Well, that's all this is.
That's the point.
That's the point. Like, we need to make this work. Yeah. We're a team. So I got your back if you got mine. Just don't be late no more.
It happens. We're all late. Man. We've all screwed up. It's just part of a life. But yeah, anyway, that went on to a whole bunch of different directions. But I just want to let everybody know that we are moving. We're going to have some stuff coming out here that you may or may not have seen before. And we're going to be getting this new studio together as fast as we can. We got a lot to do. We basically have to design it from scratch. Yes. We're just getting in the building now. So it's going to be a quick coming together thing, but there might be a little downtime. So we appreciate everybody that's been with us this far. We're doing a lot, got a lot going on, but thank you for listening, and we'll be back soon with another episode. As always,
THS Remote Supports is clearly focused on improving independent living through dynamic and personalized services. Their systems have been carefully developed and perfected to ensure that everyone receives the best care through the least intrusive means possible. Located in Cincinnati, Ohio, they've spent over 20 years providing in-home supports to individuals with disabilities. If you or someone you know is looking for a remote service provider, go to thsrss.com or call 513-882-9088.